Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are in the world. Thank you so much for joining me, Menaca, celebrating you. Today, we are going to be speaking about a topic which is really close to my heart. That is surviving single parenting. I am so glad to introduce Shera to speak about this topic. Just to give a backdrop on it, I first met Shera a few years back. I think it was in 2018 when I was a speaker on another platform and she was a guest there. And we were going up on the escalator and she asked me, "Do you know where this place is?" And I said, "I'm going to the same place, so you can just join me." Obviously, I didn't tell her I was a speaker on the day. And then afterwards, on the networking time, we spoke and we connected, and the rest is history, as they say. So a very warm welcome to Shera to the platform as a speaker, and it's such a pleasure to have you. So why is single parenting so important for us to embrace and learn about and talk about it openly and honestly and embrace the fact it does happen? Just to give a bit of statistics, in the United Kingdom, in 2019, which is 2 years earlier, almost 15% of the families were lone parent families, which counts almost to 2.9 million, which is
Not a
small number. So it's high time we speak about it openly, honestly. And more importantly, in certain cultures and communities, it is still a big taboo. We have our own difficulties on top of being a single parent on its own. So I cannot wait to listen to Shera to share her story and how she can inspire other people who are going through the same journey. Shera, a very warm welcome to the platform. I know you for a long time. Even I didn't know the story initially. Of course, I got to know with time. But I know this is the first time ever you are going to speak about it openly. Can I ask you what motivated you or inspired you to speak about this topic openly on this platform? Over to you, Shera.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel very honored that Menaca, thought of inviting me to speak. I think over the years, it has been 6 years since I've been on this journey. I've only shared my experience with friends on a one-to-one basis, never spoken, to a group of people like I am today. But I see it as an opportunity because let me tell you, when I first embarked on it 6 years ago, going through my divorce, I realized, especially, I come from Malaysia, I'll let it be known, that there were many women who felt helpless, powerless to change their lives. And I said to my lawyer in the courtroom, I said, when I come out of this, I would like to share my experience and let women know that, their lives aren't dependent on someone else. They can chart it themselves. You chart your own destiny. You do not wait for life to throw things at you, and you can actually create it yourself, and I think that is one thing that's very powerful. It is painful, very hard, but I don't know, I now look at things very differently. I think, we cannot think that our lives are perfect, because life isn't like that. So yes, is that to answer your question, or do you want me to go straight on to?
Thank you so much, Shera. That was enough explanation. Thank you so much. And it is an inspiration that particularly I know certain communities, it is so much harder to say. I come from a community which is harder to talk about as well. So I totally understand and resonate with you how hard it is for you. I am only assuming Malaysia might be even harder than some other Asian countries to talk about it. So moving on from there, can I ask you to give some kind of background, what happened and why you made the decision, and how that journey unfolded for you, please.
Let me start with 6 years ago. I think to begin with, just to give a bit of background, my marriage of 18 years was always turbulent from day one. There was mental, physical abuse, which, we all put up. Well, I would say I was stupidly putting up with it because I shouldn't have. But, you enter into a marriage and you think, you know what, you're going to persevere and you're going to make it work, and especially at the early years, you don't give up. You don't give up, even if I have to say it was physical abuse. And as my lawyer had said, the first instance you should have gotten out, but I didn't. And even then I didn't have children yet. But it was too early because, you think about, the reception your parents have thrown for you, and all the pressures, or what will my parents friends say, what will people in Kuala Lumpur think, so all those things. But looking back on hindsight, I should have left, but I didn't, as I said. So first 7 years, physical abuse, and then I worked in multinational oil and gas companies in Malaysia, in the likes of Shell. Like I said, I juggled between marriage and the career, and then on the I think 2007. So that was 10 years after the marriage. I had obviously had 2 children then. My ex-husband got a job in the Middle East. I said, this is a sign that, it's a sign to
To press the restart button, you mean?
Yes, restart the button, yeah. So I thought, okay, for many reasons, to restart the marriage button, to give my ex-husband the opportunity to progress in his career, and an opportunity for my children to be educated internationally. I came here for school and university. And if there was any chance, I said to myself when I was younger, if I had children and I had that chance, I would offer that. So that was, like I said, it was a sign that, the universe was coming together, and, I just had to take the back seat for a little while, maybe, So yes, so to answer your question, yes, it was a turbulent marriage, but things started to come up again, and it wasn't all about me, it was about other people. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Shera. Thank you for sharing that. So what made you decide to take that final step and decide that, okay, I know I have been through that journey, and I know it is never taken easily, unlike how people think that, sometimes one fine day you wake up and you say, oh, you know what, I prefer to be a single parent. It never happens like that. It's a process. But what was that final straw? You decided that you are better off as a single parent.
I think as the children grew up, what was very prominent was, because my father and mother were of 2 different backgrounds, and I could see that our values, our thoughts about bringing up children the divide was getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And I could foresee that as the children grew older, that they would get confused. They will have to choose between one or the other. So I think when they were 10, 11 years old, I started looking for schools in the UK. And I was a product of boarding school myself. I left home at 12, and I never came back until I graduated at 23. It was a difficult choice to decide for my children to go to a boarding school here, but I think it was a choice that I had to make, a choice, between two evils.
Mhm.
Um, I, as a lot of people here will know, that the Asian culture can be quite constrained. In my household anyway. Oh, as you know, and I have two girls, and you know what girls I like. A father starts to say, "Oh, you can't go out in a short skirt. You can't go out onto the beach with a pair of shorts. You can't do this. You can't do that." And my biggest fear was that the father would start to say, "You have reached puberty now. You will have to cover your hair." No, I never covered my hair. My mother never did until she died. And I think religion is something that is very personal. You do not tell people what to do. At the end of the day, the faith is in here, not what you show to people. So that was it. And there were a lot of things which really affected the children. Never mind me, I'm an adult, I can handle it. But of course, there were always arguments and fights and things like that.
Sure.
But yeah, that was
Thank you,
really.
Shera. Thank you so much. I think it's important for you to tell the backstory and make people understand. No one takes these things very lightly, and there's always a reason why people make these choices. So, can I ask you, knowing your background, how did you manage your life with your children after you decided to separate or get divorced and become a single parent?
After I decided to go on this journey,
Yes, please.
it was very difficult. As I said, the first year when all this happened, I kept my divorce proceedings or processes to myself. I never told my parents. I never told my family. Until today, they have still not heard the words from my mouth, my own mouth. There were three things that I had done, which I believe people go through in their whole lifetime. The three major events that happen in anyone's lifetime, I had to do it in 1 year. So one was the divorce, one was moving countries, never mind moving house, moving countries, and then the death of my mother. So I had to shoulder all this at the same time, be strong for my children. For good or bad, my children were in boarding school, but I think the boarding school provided them some kind of stability. Had they been at home, it would have been difficult. Um, so as I said, I made my way to England because it was the most sensible thing for me to do. Divorce, I had to be close to my children. Otherwise, I think what would have happened, and that was what I didn't want, was that my ex-husband would have said, well, if we're getting a divorce, you're heading back to Malaysia, the children should be pulled out of school. There is no reason for them to be in the UK. So I didn't want that. So I immediately made my move to the UK, not knowing on what visa I was going to go on. I got here, obviously, on a tourist visa to start off with. And in that 6 months, I had to think
Start all
of,
over.
start all over, but not even starting. I knew I only had 6 months because, I had to get out within 6 months. But the school helped me. The school, always, whenever I had to go in and out, because my mother was ill then, every time I went in and out of the country, the school would write a letter to say that, she's a parent, she's very involved, although we are a boarding school, but she comes to events and things like that. So that helped. But eventually, yes, I thought, I cannot do this half cooked. I have to make sure that my children, at the end of the day, they're going to be here at least 8 years. Now, I don't know what future they have, but while I'm here, I'd like to try for them to get an indefinite leave to remain, and eventually it be their decision in their 20s to decide whether they want to be a British citizen. But the option, I, as a mother, I think that's my responsibility to make sure that all options are open for them. Yeah.
I can totally resonate with it. As far as I know, you did your law degree in the UK. Am I right?
Yes, I did. Yes, in the early
Yes.
90s. Yes.
So did that make it any easier for you to settle back in the UK?
Not really. First of all, I did not practice as a lawyer. So I have my LLB honors, but I don't have the bar or the legal practice solicitor's qualification. And my career had mostly been in PR and corporate communications in the oil and gas. So the only time that I had done any law was my first job as an in-house lawyer, and of which I didn't even carry on. I became a journalist after that, and then went on to communications. No, when I came here, I only had myself and my children, and I wouldn't even say I had a whole stable of friends, no. But it helped to know that I felt this was like home. My parents were educated here, and therefore I think I have to say, although I'm Asian, my thinking is very Western, more Western than Asian. And somehow, like I said, I didn't have many people here. I had a few school friends. I went to school in Sussex, so I had a few, I would say 2 or 3 school friends, but I can't really say. And I also decided that I didn't want to be close to anyone. It was my choice, because I think one thing, again, I can't generalize whether it's an Asian thing. I never realized that getting to know yourself and having that time to yourself is actually a very powerful experience. I think being in an Asian culture, as I said, you're always surrounded by family, you're always surrounded by relatives, and then you are surrounded, everything is mapped out, mapped out. School, get results. I was a scholar as well. So for me, it was always trying to achieve this, that, and the other, and then come back from graduating, you live with your parents. You don't live on your own, you live with your parents. And then you live with your parents right up till you marry, because, as I say, in the Asian culture, it's always in the hands of the male. So the father takes care of you. From the father is straight to the husband, So I never had that time on my own. Let's say this, but I find it difficult to even iron my own clothes, because I just didn't iron when I was growing up. But I find it very therapeutic now, finally, at the age of late 40s, 50s. But, I try to tell my children, it is, you've got to be comfortable with yourself. You've got to be comfortable. You've got to be your own best friend. And only then you can be able to care and love for other people. Love doesn't come from other people. It comes from you first, So,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you, Shera, because I think today I wrote a post saying, who is your best friend? And I think when you make yourself your best friend, the right people will come to you. And I think I cannot agree more with what you said. So, I'm in total agreement with whatever you said. So can I ask you, the realm of uncertainty is really scary. It is, it is scary for ourselves. People who literally, love ourselves as well, it's scary for them. And also, I think some of the criticism and concern comes from genuine love. When our parents or close families and friends tell you, are you sure you want to be a single parent? I think certain times when people tell you not to do it, or are you sure you want to do it, they ask you again and again. It definitely comes from a place of love, place of concern. It's not, they are not telling you because of anything else. It is their reality. So how did you manage that realm of uncertainty in your world?
I agree. People will keep asking you, and that is the reason why I kept it all quiet. I said to you, until today, my family, they've never heard me. They know I'm divorced, but they've never heard it from my own mouth.
Sure.
But I wanted to go through this journey myself, and I would not have done it any other way. I wouldn't have done it differently. I wished I had known what was involved, but you know what? Like I said, life is not certain. So the difficulties I had with regards to my children is the communication, the bonding.
Sure.
Because they were at boarding school, that was I think for me, the biggest challenge was, like I said, I myself am a product of boarding school, and I know I didn't bond very well with my parents. And I knew that, well, when I decided for them to go, I had to choose between two evils. So when all this happened, I had to deal with it. They were then 15 and 16 years old, and they were one was doing her GCSE, and I've got two children who are 1 year apart, so not very far. So one was in the GCSEs and one was 1 year below. I didn't want to disrupt that, so we never talked about it. I would only go and visit them every Sunday without fail. I would go either for lunch or tea, and we would speak like nothing happened. So when they finally got out of boarding school, which was 3 years after I had gone through the divorce, it was difficult. It was difficult to talk to them. Yes.
Okay. Sure. Can I ask you, and I think any parent who have had a teenage child at any point can relate to it. Having a teenage child is no cakewalk. Being a single parent with teenage is definitely, challenging. And for you not to be addressing this topic at all, and then having to deal with these teenage children afterwards, how was the journey?
Oh, how was the journey? I have to say, I saw my children only on exit weekends and half terms. The long term holidays, they would fly out to the Middle East. I didn't really have proper time to speak to them. So therefore, I had no choice but to sweep it under the carpet, because the littlest time I had, I just wanted to enjoy and be happy. So I would take them out for dinner, nice places. Of course, now it's a dream in this lockdown. You think about it, and that was always the height of all their trips back to me. As I said, I never spoke to them. Actually, only recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, on my birthday. It was very obvious that there were lots of things unsaid. My birthday, I have always been a mother who always created the fuss over birthdays. It's always my duty, and I've never made an issue about it. But when it was my birthday, this time, I felt that my children did not make any effort, or rather, I'd say one. The effort came from only one, and I think she lost her enthusiasm when she saw the older sister wasn't playing ball, and that was quite hurtful, because I could see it, and my eldest is 21 now, so she's an adult, and I said, you know what? I think there's a lot of things that we have to talk about at this moment. You're 21. You think you're an adult, then we've got to sit down. So I have to say to you, in those 5-6 years when they were young, from 15 up to 16, it was difficult. And as I said, if there's any advice I'd like to give to anyone who wants to consider divorce, is, I think, if you can speak to your children, co-parent in amicably, that would be the best. Put your interests aside because you are now two different people. You have to start to think about your children's future. In my case, mine was acrimonious. So the challenge I find is you have two different people telling two different sets of things, and the children get confused. So what happens is there'll be three things that will happen. One is the children will take sides. They will decide who they want to follow. Two is they themselves, hopefully, I wished mine would reach a certain level where experience will teach them to be mature, and they themselves decide what is best for them. But they're so young. You know, as you know, when you look back on your life, you think, you know, I wish I had made decisions differently, but it only comes with experience, so you can't. And the third is, of course, and I've got friends who's who have gone through their parents' divorce. What happens is for everything that goes wrong, they blame their parents because of the divorce, and therefore they never grow up. So those are the three things. So as I said, my advice, if anyone was going to go through and you have children, is I think you have to set aside your own interests as parents, accept that you are both different people and you've decided to go two different ways, but you need to speak with one voice if you can, so that your children's future is enhanced, whereas for me it's not. So my children
Sure.
are always in a turmoil.
Thank you so much, Shera. I really, really appreciate you being so candid and transparently sharing your experiences. One thing I can tell is from my side, being a single parent, that is one thing I have been blessed with. Our co-parenting has never been an issue. And, my daughter has a great dad in her father. And so we managed to keep that going till date because she was very young. We got divorced. She was hardly 5, 6 years old. So, I think that is one thing we have done it right. And not many things I can tell in my life looking back on it, I did it right. But this is one thing for sure we managed to hold on to. So, it was really great and insightful to know how your journey was with your children. Can I come to you as a person? How did it affect you? And what did this journey teach you? Because all these journeys and experiences in life, like from drawing from my own experiences, they teach you a lot. And we become better people. We become better people for ourselves, and we become better people for others around us. So how has your learning been?
Okay, like I said, my journey has been very it's been scary, it's been very tiring, but how would I say, what have I learned? I think for me the biggest lesson was, as I said, I have learned to be comfortable with myself. I've learned, if there's anything, it's me unlearning the old things that I was molded to be. And now by unlearning, I'm learning new things, which have empowered me and allowed me to look at life in a different way. As success, for example, back in the how I was brought up, or even in Asia, it's success is what people see you. You become board of directors, or you sit on some big you become a vice president of human resource or whatever it is. I'm not belittling people like that. But I don't think I was there. I think had my marriage had not been so turbulent at the start, my career could have taken on a different footing, and maybe I could be there. I don't know. But as I said, my priorities were then my children, and of course, to a certain extent, the marriage. But I had to draw the line when things just didn't look very, very bright. So I had to let go. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, because I think it is so much truth in it, because it's what is success, right? Because we let other people define what is success for us. And I think that's when the problem comes, because success is very different things for different people. If we ask all the participants today here, or people who are listening on the Facebook, what do you want to be successful? 100% of them, or at least more than 90% of them, I hope, will say yes, they want to be successful. But if we ask them what is success for them, we will get a myriad of different answers. But what we do is we try to then impose what is success for us for somebody else. We try to define their definition of success. And I think that is what is the issue there. And you beautifully put it, saying you wanted to become successful in your own right. What really matters to you? And I think that's what you have learned. And I think that is the biggest learning anyone can have. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you have a passion for drawing, painting, and I have to say that because I won't be doing any justice at all. And please have a look at the chat box, and Kiruba, if you have the photograph, please feel free to share it. Okay. Shera even made the cake for my birthday. So her next passion is cooking, and Shera goes to that extra length, even for her friends, to make sure their birthdays go well, not only her, children's birthday. So I'm really, honored to, be in that position that I didn't even know she was coming. And then when I went and I was just having a chat and we were sitting and talking about it, and suddenly Kiruba and Shera come from nowhere with the singing and dancing and cakes and candles. So, I know that it is another piece of passion you have. So what is it in pipeline? Because your journey so far has been always transformation and progress, and another step and another step. So what are you going to do next? What are you looking forward to having in your life next?
Yes, I think I have an artistic talent within myself. I think it comes from my mother. Given a choice, at university, what would I have liked to do? I would have loved to do art history. I would have eventually wanted to become an art gallery curator or something like that, or even just an artist. So what I did when I came back from the UK after I got my law degree, I started my first job. On Saturdays, at the time, Saturday was a half-day work day. I would come back from work. I signed up with one of the art galleries to learn to be an apprentice in his own time, to teach me painting, watercolor, oils, and acrylics. So I did that for a couple of years, and when I moved here, I shipped my things, and one of the things I brought was my paintings when I was in my first job and when the children were babies. But it was something that your parents always say, oh, this is not a proper profession, this is supposed to be a hobby. No, you have to do law, you have to be a doctor or an engineer or an accountant. Those were the four things always, so I had to do it as a hobby, and that's what I did. I signed up for classes on the weekends. It was therapeutic for me. And then cooking. So my mother was a home economics teacher. She used to do all the things that which today you see in shops and cafes and restaurants. Pavlovas were her thing. When I was little, and in the early 70s, she would make bomb Alaskas. She would make all the desserts, which were in Malaysia were a delicacy. But because I grew up in a kitchen where pavlovas are not an issue, anything I do, just give me a recipe, I can do it. I don't have this thing about, oh, the cake's not going to happen. Oh, do I have, I know because my mother has always said that.
You are speaking to the right person. I am not one for knowing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I know it already that the butter and sugar need to be beaten and what color it is. It's already in here. I don't have to learn it. So I'm very confident. So as I said, all I need to do is just look into a recipe book, and I will do it. So I've got all these things which I wish and aspire to do, but I'm working on them. And as I said, my my um my most immediate thing that I want to work on is to have a Zoom cook session, and it's not just any normal cooking session. Jamie Oliver, Nigella, and whatever. The thing with all these people, yes, if you want exotic cooking, authentic Thai, authentic whatever, it's a big effort to go and buy things, and you buy a bottle of spice, and you only use that much, and then the rest of the time is not used. No, for me, one is what I'm trying to do is cook. I in my head, the concept is Malaysian cooking in a hurry. So if I can try and trim down my recipes to half an hour, because you want delicious food, you don't want the trouble. But I can create.
Perfect.
I want to.
You have me signed up for sure.
So yes, so that's what's in the pipeline, and I'm sure you will. Once that takes off, Menaca, you're going to tell everyone on here anyway.
Of course, anytime. Easy cooking, anytime. I will be there to support, because what we, as particularly as working parents, single parents, and business women, I think it is very demanding. Understandably, you have a love for cooking, which some of them do. I know on this platform, Julie does. So some of you like to spend the time and cook. That's okay. But otherwise, I think the easy cooking is the way forward, particularly because I think it ties in really well with single parenting, because particularly if you have to pay your bills, be at the same time be efficient and feed your children. I think that comes really handy. So thank you so much, Shera, for sharing your heart out.
It was a pleasure.
Candidly. Just before I ask that question to Shera, just to let everyone know, after this, we will be allowing everyone to ask questions. And please feel free to come on board and ask the question to yourself, or send the questions privately, so that we can send the questions to Kirubai, and Kirubai will pass it on to me, and we can put the questions through to Shera. But please be mindful when you ask the questions, to keep it short and succinct, so that we can allow as many people to ask those questions and gain insight from Shera as much as possible. I'm going to ask you a final question. What is the parting word from you?
Parting words. I'll share my takeaways from my journey. As I said, I think as a woman, you must first be happy within yourself before you can offer love, care, affection, and provide others. Never feel your happiness is dependent on other people. The happiness has to come from you, and more so, it does not come from a man, okay, as what we were taught, when we were young or little or whatever it is. And as I've already said about, if anyone had to go through a divorce, if you can make it as amicable as possible, for the sake of the children, I think that is most important. Yeah. And with regards to co-parenting, as I said, I am quite lucky, ironically, that the two parents live in two different countries. So therefore, I have the children most of the time. But again, as I said to you, because there's two different messages that come through, the children are still torn. But I continue. My children are both at university at the moment. One is 20 and one is 21. I continue to endeavor my best to try to be both father and mother wherever I'm capable. And divorce is difficult for children, no matter what.
Divorce is difficult for everyone involved, full stop. I think. And I think when you said, as a woman, you have to learn to love yourself, accept it. I think whether a woman or a man, You need to
Yes.
learn yourself and accept
Yes.
yourself. And,
Exactly.
as they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to keep your cup
Mhm.
full so that you can spread that love and
Yes.
energy and care and time for everybody else. So unless until you look after yourself, you keep yourself
Yes.
happy, you accept yourself, then you cannot spread that happiness and love around you. So thank you
Yes.
so much, Shera.
Yeah, it was a
Really
pleasure.
appreciate that. Before I ask to give the vote of thanks, I will ask all the audiences keep the questions ready so that when if the time comes, it will be quick and efficient way for Shera to answer your questions and add value to everyone who is listening. Because the great thing about questions is it doesn't only help you, it helps everybody else who is listening to those answers. Before I hand it over to Julie to give the vote of thanks, I'm going to introduce the next speaker, another controversial topic. I'm sure definitely in certain cultures. Is it still a taboo to live together? And I still remember the conversation I had with Julie, and Julie absolutely didn't have a clue that it's still a taboo in certain cultures. So that shows there's not enough knowledge and awareness about each other's cultures and each other's difficulties. So I think it is important to start talking about all these things openly. And our next speaker is Sujak Herrera, who is from Sri Lanka. She's a solicitor in immigration, nationality, asylum, and human rights. So I'm so looking forward to having Sujak Herrera next time to come and speak. Is living together still a taboo? With that, I'm going to hand it over to Julie to tell the vote of thanks. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Menaca. And thank you, Shera, for having the courage to share your story with all of us for the first time. We are honored to hear it, and I know that we all listened with great interest. And I personally was inspired by it. We appreciate you being so open with us about your journey of discovery. You and I actually have a similar background, PR and communications in oil and gas.
Oh, wow.
Both worked for oil companies. So it truly resonated with me. Thank you. Thank you for being honest with us about how difficult it was. And I'm sure a lot of us can really connect with us. Thanks everyone for joining us on Facebook and everyone who's come along to the session today. I hope that you leave today at the end after Q&A with some lessons learned from this inspiring story. Thanks, Shera, and thank you, Menaca.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you so much. So with that, let's go to the Q&A, and please forward the questions to me or to Kirubai so that we can put the questions to Shera to answer, please. Okay, Shera, there's one question. Like, it is difficult to go through single parenting. It is difficult to go through divorce and having children. But your background and you're a qualified professional. You had a background, and seems like you come from quite a comfortable family. All those things. Did that make that journey any easier?
I guess it did. But as I said, I was not a practicing lawyer. I came here with no backing whatsoever in terms of, yes, I do have a UK degree. Yes, I can apply for jobs. I had some kind of support. I would not have changed my mind I would not have changed my decision to divorce if I was of a lesser, my finances were lesser. I would still have gone through, but I would have probably been in Malaysia. And that would not have been a good place to be. I can live my life better here. I am not bothered. People don't know me, whereas if I was in Kuala Lumpur, I would not be able to have a cup of coffee in the Twin Towers, where where that's the closest place that from home to have coffee, and without someone saying, "Hey, Shera, what are you doing? Why are you alone? Where are your children?" All those questions will come, and it's not normal to be on your own. Yeah. And the other thing I notice is when you go through divorce, um, married people, families who have their marriages intact, the husbands will become a little bit suspicious. It can go both ways, actually. The husband doesn't want their wife to be friends with you because they're terrified that you might influence their wife. Wife as well doesn't want the husband to be too pally-wally because thinking I might come in and scoop the husband, God knows what. But you know what? I am above all that. I don't do jealousy. I don't do this sort of nonsense. As I said, I'm much better off here. I get to focus on myself and ask the important questions to myself. I haven't got time, about what people say, what people are going to talk or bicker up behind me. So.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm laughing away because I can totally resonate to everything you're saying. And that's the reason I couldn't stop smiling away. And back home, as you said, like if you go to buy something in the shop, even before you come home, the news will travel home. That, I still remember when I walk, even before I walk in, my mom will, did you go to this particular shop? Like, okay, fine, great.
Yeah.
I don't need to say anything because, if the news has already arrived.
Yes, correct. Before you even arrive home.
The next question to you is, do you have any tips for someone who has to send their children to day school on their own, how to manage?
Sorry, do I have any?
Okay. Do you have any tips for someone who has to send their children to day school on their own? How can they manage?
I'm not really in a position to answer that. As I said, I came here and my children were already in boarding school. But if I had to live my life in Malaysia on a daily basis, I think the most important thing, a most important asset you have if your children were at day school is that you have that daily bonding, that you can sit at meal times, help them with homework, be involved with their lives, and take those moments to reach out to them and make them understand why you did it. They might be too young to understand. Actually, you shouldn't be explaining because it's quite hurtful, but it helps to soften the edges, I think, and eventually when they come to the age where they can understand, you're already 1 foot in, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I can step in and tell because
Yes.
this is my part of my story. So I can tell it because my daughter was only 5 or 6 when we went our separate ways. However, we were very lucky. Firstly, we were in the same town, in London. So it was like, it was not impossible. So our solution to the problem was, because she was quite small, we decided to alternate the days. Every single day, she would see both the parents. One would drop, one would pick up, and we worked around our job to fit into her world rather than the other way around. So that's how we managed it. But for us, she was going to day school even before we went separate ways because we both were working parents and at full time. So we didn't have a choice. My daughter went to full-time daycare when she was 1.5 years old. So, and before that, prior to that, she was actually in Sri Lanka for a while. So, by many standards, I might not be the trophy mom, but that's the decision I had to make. And that's how we, overcame that issue. And, I think hindsight is a good thing. And like Maya Angelou says, if we know better, we do better. So we all did what we thought is the best thing at that time. And so I don't think anyone can do anything more than what you think is best at that particular time and with everything you have got. That is my answer. And there are more questions coming your way, Shera.
Okay.
So how to handle the emotional turmoil of kids, of divorced parents? How can the children understand and accept the situation?
I have to tell you, it isn't easy. They will not, and they will not empathize. They will not, because on the other side, they will also be getting inputs from the father or whoever it may be. It's not actually, if you ask me, I think both parents should not divulge anything. As I said to you, both parents should ideally just not get their children involved, trying to explain or trying to say who's right or who's wrong or whatever. No. I think any communication that goes to the children has to be about how they are progressing in their future. It's no longer about you, the mother or the father anymore. That you can take it off, you don't have to involve the children, I don't think. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. In my view, I think I I did something totally different from Shera. From the day one, I always explained to my daughter that we are not together. But we had this amazing teacher in primary school where my daughter went. And she explained to my daughter, I still remember the storybook she gave, and she explained how two individuals or adults can be happier separately than being together. And it doesn't mean they don't love the child. It's just that they will be better parents and they will be happier separately than together. And I think that is the biggest gift I achieved at that time from that teacher. However, listening from a child's perspective, and I think it will be very hard for me or Shera to speak from their perspective, because we speak from our perception of their perception, actually. It is not a direct perception from their view. Their own world, how they perceive things, how they see things. I think it's a great question. One day, perhaps we should get a adult who have had divorced parents or separated parents and listen to their views. How did they perceive and see these things, and how their experience was? Because whatever we say is, as they say, we all see the world through our own tinted glasses, and this is the way me or Shera or someone else has seen it, and it will be hard, and I think it wouldn't do any justice for us to say this is how they actually feel, because this is our perception, or it is our view how they felt it, and that would be my take on that. Julie, can you ask the question? You have a question.
Yes, I do. Thanks, Menaca. Shera, I raised my daughter from the age of 3 by myself after my divorce, and remarried later, but had a good time, just the two of us, living abroad in another country, no family support. So quite similar to you.
Yeah.
You talked about finding yourself and learning about yourself. I'm interested to know, what was the biggest surprise that you had about you?
Actually, there were many surprises. I think, again, I'm not sure whether I should blame parents or blame culture or blame the upbringing I had. Like I said, I mentioned about feeling therapeutic, even ironing now. I'm not an ironing freak, no. But once the ironing board is out, I can go on and on and on. Now, growing up, my mother used to say to me, oh, this is beneath you. Let the maid do it. So never. And living in the Middle East, and as an expat, you always have maids. So that in itself was finding myself. Funnily, I don't know how to explain to you, but things which you were taught as being beneath you actually is very empowering.
Yeah.
I realized being in London, my life is not dependent on any, I used to feel, God, I've never hoovered, but you look at what the Dyson can do, bloody hell, it's really good, But, all that was finding myself. I don't know how to explain to you, but all the things that you feared growing up, because your parents used to say, no, 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 you were made for bigger things. You were made for, you can only do, you have to be these 4 things, these 4 professions. No, it doesn't. And that's what I said, success is defined by you, not by what you have to show to other people. So all these things, as I said, was a discovery of myself. So nothing now phases me. I
Sure.
feel liberated, that I no longer feel fear about all these silly things, So
Sure.
yeah, I don't know whether I answered your question, but
Thank you for Julie for asking the question. Thank you for sharing. Whoever is on the Zoom, please hold on. We are going to go into the networking and Q&A after party after this. But for people who are listening to us on Facebook, it is time to say goodbye for till the next week. Next week, another interesting topic. Is it still a taboo to live together? We look forward to joining you next week, same time, same place. Until then, be happy, stay safe, and keep smiling.